don't know how much protesting works, right?
Protesting does not work. I mean, there's very few things more annoying in the speaking as a black man in the black community, there's very few things more annoying than a black man blaming all of his problems on a white man. It's just like it's so easy to be like, well, I would have got that job, but he was white.
Hmm.
I would have got out of that. I would have never got busted, but the cop was racist. I would have I would have got ahead, but systematic racism. And it's like you're absolutely right. Systematic racism is a thing. Just being born where you're born,
Hmm.
you're already at disadvantage. This is absolutely true. And what I don't see enough from my community is people fighting to get through the systematic racism and then doing something to address the systematic racism. Instead, what I see a lot of people doing is succumbing to the environment and just being like, well, this is it, and I'm gonna blame racism for it. It's like you still gotta try something. Like no one's saying people aren't keeping me down as a black man in this country. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, I'm not gonna use that as an excuse to uh not fight the own uh racial stereotypes in my neighborhood. Like I don't think there's enough responsibility being taken, self-responsibility being taken in my community. That's one of my biggest issues and concerns with black people. And then touching on the second thing, it's just a matter of it's not really how do you describe it? It's something you have to battle, but the protesting is not really the way to do it. I mean, when you look at and I'm by far no expert on this, but when you're taught the three, maybe at most famous black people in America, Martin Luther King is clearly the first one you learn about, and it's not the major one, and he was very much a peaceful person,
Hmm.
and he got a lot accomplished in his lifetime as a peaceful person. But I think people forget like just um, just 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 as much as was done after the very violent assassination of him as well,
Hmm.
and then the violent uprising that occurred after that from us. I think what has happened is we are getting a lot of the through protests and Black Lives Matter, which I am 100% against, to be honest with you. You can get into that, but through peaceful protesting, people are forgetting that we don't have the MLK figure to spearhead and solidify the messaging, because that's kind of what he did for us. He calmed us down. He made sure, not made sure, but he made it so that we could fight peacefully. But in doing so, we had a clear, concise message. And on top of that, we had a person who we could look up to, who can lead us, that isn't that does not have this. Let's be honest, this colorful past. I mean, there's so many people that the Black Lives Matter movement are using as figureheads, as poster boys, and it's like these people. This person was abusing drugs. This person was selling drugs. This person has a long criminal history. Like these are all. I mean, like when I get angry about the racial injustice and the straight up killing and murdering of black people in America by not only by white people, by anybody, by our own kind, it's usually because it's someone actually innocent. It's usually a child or someone going just on their way to school, a stray bullet, someone who had no part of this system. But I'm I'm just really getting sick of seeing. the people, the figureheads of this movement are people that are very much a part of this system and almost happily so. I mean, I'm just used to reading about and learning about people who, even like a Malcolm X, who had a very colorful past. Uh, his very militant way of moving was clear and concise and organized. But now we're celebrating the lives of people who are flat out drug dealers,
Hmm.
you know, like confirmed drug dealers, and it's like that's the type of people who are going to get shot in the street anyway. You know, I don't really have sympathy for my people who are in the game, and that's not to say. I know this is a very long rant, but that's not to say um, screw those people, whatever. It's really
Right.
just a matter of I'm gonna quote I'm gonna quote rapper Cameron. Niggas get shot every day, B. You be alright. Know what I mean? Like it's he's speaking about a guy who just lost his friend in the game of drug dealing, in the game of gang banging. When you're in this system, you're playing that game, you're going to get shot by your own kind, some other kind. Doesn't matter. You're not going to end this story with a happy ending. And we're dealing with people who are like going to kneel and peacefully march, peacefully protest, and make all this hoopla over people who are very much a part of the game. I'm just like, where were you? Like, why wasn't this happening when like children were being murdered? And why do we always have to wait for? Why do we always have to wait to apparently come together, if you want to say that, when white people get involved? Like
Hmm.
we sit here and we cry over Breonna Taylor, like, oh my gosh, he was just sleeping. Like, we are sleeping with a drug dealer. Great. Like, who had a gun on him, who when arrested said to the cops it was her gun in the first place. And it's like, if she's not, he is definitely one like a part of this game. And it's I like where like why are we like celebrating the lives of people who are just like a part of the who are willingly a part of the system? Like, it's just, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, where were you at when children were murdered in the streets who had no part in this, who but like we rally around people who were going to get shot anyway, who are going to get robbed anyway, who were going to continue poisoning their own environment anyway, or my own environment, our own environment anyway. Like, it's a very weird thing to to rally behind. And I just, at the end of the day, like, even if we use them as a tool, if you will, to unite everyone, to unite the country, peaceful protesting does jack all. Like, it just doesn't anymore, and it's because we don't have a central figure like MLK or Malcolm X. We don't. Instead, we have a group of people who we don't know. Like, if I asked you who runs the Black Lives Matter movement,
Hmm.
you wouldn't be able to tell me. Like, very few people would. If I asked you what they stood for, actually, I'm going to ask you, what does Black Lives Matter stand for? Like, what's their mission statement?
Hmm.
Like, do you know the answer?
No, no. Like, you know,
There's a
it's
lot there. Apologies.
no, no, no. Like, it's that thing where it's like a sobering moment, right? Because if I tried to answer it, I'd have like that stuttering moment. It's like, oh, well, you know, like racial injustice, or like stop murdering black people, or like, you know, defund the police. And again, like, we're at this point where like those concepts in themselves, I don't think they're bad, and I'm not trying to like speak out against that, but I totally get what you're saying about. Okay, so uh, you know, my whole beef about oversimplifying something that's like really complicated, but like, let me just use that as an example here. So like, there's a big problem, right? So you call out the problem and you try to chunk it down, and like, what can actually be done about it. That is such a clusterfuck. Like, what could you even do, right? So I guess like it's easier in that way to like have people just keep making noise.
I mean, noise to what end though? Like this,
Mm,
the government we have, they don't respond to noise.
that's true.
They've proven they don't respond to noise. There has never ever been a successful uh, regime change, if you will, without blood being paid. I'm sorry, like it's just. I mean that's not me saying go shoot your politician. I don't know what you should do, honestly, but the 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 idea of let's go kneel in front of Trump's house.
Mm,
Like, why does Trump care about you kneeling? Like, why do a bunch of cops care about you crying about defund the police? Like, the police union is one of the strongest unions in the country. Like, you can cry all you want, but unless you can outbid the police union, a politician is not going to care about what you say. Unless you can, unless you're willing to put your life on the line, your protesting means jack crap to me. It really doesn't. Uh, cause cause I just it's just to it's gotten to a point where where I feel like if a protest or a movement is powerful enough, if it's purposeful enough, if it's uh, successful enough, not only this government, governments in general will snuff it out.
mm,
The Black Panthers were a group of people who were a lot bigger before, not so much now, because the government really came down hard on them because they were actually terrified of them. Um, the gov, However, now you have actual politicians going around saying BLM in their hashtags,
mm,
and it because and they're co-opting this movement, and it's not because, and I don't think it's because they are trying to create this noise. I think it's they're just trying to bolster their constituents. They're trying to and successfully co-opting a movement that has been softened and rendered ineffective.